Hey there, welcome back to the Steel City Sports Podcast. Today we're going to be doing our breakdown of the Eastern Conference play-in tournament. I will say before we start this that for the Western side, we did do that video a couple days ago. And of course, the seeds kind of shifted around a little, so the matchups are no longer the same as that prediction video. If you guys want me to redo that as, the updated matchups, let me know down in the comments below. But everything I said in that video still basically applies to those matchups. But again, if you want me to redo that, please let me know. But let's get into the Eastern Conference breakdown here. Starting with our 7-8 matchup, we have the Heat taking on the Hawks. I find this to be an ironic matchup, just given that last year's 1-8 matchup was these two teams here. Obviously, Miami was 1, Atlanta was 8. So a big fall for Miami, which I did predict. I didn't think they'd be that great this year, and even all throughout last year, I was not really a big fan of the Miami Heat. Not that I don't like them, but I just don't like the construction of their roster. I'm a big Jimmy fan, big Bam fan, but outside of those two guys and Hero, I guess, I don't really trust anyone else on this team. Going through the breakdown, at the point guard, we have Gabe Vincent for Miami versus Trae Young. Even though Trae Young has had even a quote-unquote down year this year, still by far and away the better player. The two matchup, Tyler Hero versus DeJounte Murray. Two very different styles of play. Tyler Hero is pretty much a pure scorer slash shooter, whereas DeJounte is more of a Swiss Army knife type of guy. And he's, of course, a former All-Star. So, yes, I am going with DeJounte Murray in that matchup. For the small forwards, Max Strus versus DeAndre Hunter. DeAndre Hunter here for sure. And if you watched my Western Conference breakdown, I talked a lot about these 3-and-D versatile role players. And DeAndre Hunter very much so fits in that mold. I'm a big fan of his game. At the 4, Jimmy Butler versus John Collins. I hate the fact that Jimmy Butler is playing the power forward. I know we're transitioning more into a positionless league, but I just hate the fact that guys like Jimmy and DeMar are now considered power forwards. I don't like that at all. But obviously, you give the advantage to Butler here. And then Bam versus Clint Capella. Again, clear advantage to the Heat. Capella's a good little player, but Bam is I would say a top 5 defender in the league, just given his versatility. I think he can guard really any position there is. And then looking at their last 10, Miami is 6-4, whereas Atlanta's 5-5. I am tempted to lean a little more towards Atlanta because, like I said, I don't love the construction of Miami. I don't love their depth, and I think Atlanta has the better overall starting lineup, but just given Jimmy Butler is one of the best playoff players and given the fact of they have the better coach, they have the better culture, I'm going to go with Miami here to win this play-in game, and they will be the 7th seed for the proper playoff bracket. And for our 9-10 matchup, we have the Toronto Raptors taking on the Chicago Bulls, two teams that I think were a little disappointing this year. The fact that they're in the play-in, especially Toronto, a team that was the 5 seed last year and took the Sixers to a 7-game series. The Bulls, we kind of expected this a little more, just given Lonzo's injury. So let's go through the matchups here. Point guard position for Toronto, we have Fred VanVleet versus Chicago's Patrick Beverley. And it's well documented. I'm not anywhere near a Patrick Beverley fan. I haven't really liked Patrick Beverley since he was a Houston Rocket. And I just think, even though Fred VanVleet is having a down year, I think he just provides a lot more to an offense than Beverley does. So I'm going with him. At the 2, OG Anunoby versus Alex Caruso. And I like Alex Caruso, but OG Anunoby is one of the best 3-and-D players in the league. You can argue the best. The 3, Scotty Barnes versus Zach LaVine. Very different players. Again, Zach LaVine is a offensive machine, whereas Scotty Barnes is like a Swiss Army knife. And although I like Scotty's game probably more because I do like versatile players, you got to give it to Zach LaVine here. At the 4 spot, Siakam versus DeRozan. I think Siakam is obviously the more natural power forward given his frame, but DeMar is the better overall player, so we're going with him. And then at the center position, Jakob Poeltl versus Nikola Vucevic. Basically exact opposite of players because Vucevic very much so an offensive player and Poeltl very much so a defensive player. I think this one's pretty much even, although I will give it to Vucevic just out of respect. He has the more name recognition. Ultimately, though, their last 10, they're identical, 6-4, and I'm going to go with Toronto to win this game. I just like their players better. I like their coach better. And I think they just have better depth. They're a better overall team. So I'm going with them to win this game. And lastly, we will have the Raptors and the Hawks fighting it out for the 8th seed. And going through the lineups again, here we have Trae Young versus Fred VanVleet. Slight edge. Not slight. Obviously, Trae Young's better. DeJounte Murray versus OG. I'm taking DeJounte here. At the 3, we have DeAndre Hunter versus Scotty Barnes. You give the edge to Barnes. Siakam versus Collins at the 4. Clear advantage for Siakam, in my opinion. And then you have Capella versus Poeltl. Pretty close, but ultimately Capella probably wins that one out. And then the last 10, Toronto 6-4 to Atlanta's 500 record. So in this matchup, I actually do like Toronto, although they are the lower seed, although this game will be played in Atlanta. I just love the versatility and the defensive potential of the Toronto Raptors. And for me, Atlanta, they still really haven't gelled. The Trae Young, DeJounte, John Collins trio just really hasn't gelled as I thought it would. And they're still have a relatively new a new head coach. So for me, they're kind of trying to build their system / chemistry on the fly, whereas this Toronto team is very used to playing with each other. So I like them in this. I just think their versatility and their depth are better than Atlanta's, and they will advance to be the 8th seed. So that is it for our Eastern Conference breakdown for the play-in. Stay tuned. We're going to be obviously doing predictions for the regular playoffs coming up. And thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe.